Are you ready for the next silver crash? Well, you better be, and this video is going to help you prepare for such an event. Let's talk about it as we explore. That's right. I hate to break it to you, but silver's price probably will crash at some point during your lifetime, and we may have seen it before, and we'll likely see it again. We're going to define exactly what a silver price crash is and what could cause it, and also how to prepare for it by doing 5 things. So stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss what I'm going to be talking about in this video. This channel is sponsored by Summit Metals. They're great people, and they have been proven themselves to provide great customer service and fast shipping. So check out summitmetals.com and elevate your wealth with Summit Metals. You know, silver is a metal that really frustrates a lot of people, myself included, over time, because it seems like it should be doing a whole lot better than where it is now. And even though it's performed quite well, at the recording of this video, the metal has far outperformed inflation just this year. However, there has been times when silver's fallen dramatically in price, almost to the point where it was a crash. Well, what is a stock market crash or a crash in a commodity or an investment? Well, usually it's a dramatic decline triggered by panic and mass selling. And while there's no single universally agreed upon definition, it generally involves a significant drop, such as 10% or more in a single day, or for a few days. Usually it's characterized by a sharp, rapid decrease in the value of the investment. Now, silver should not be seen as an investment, but it trades like one many times, and we're seeing that certainly this year. It's performing like an investment, but in the long run, it should be seen as a hedge against economic instability, a hedge against economic shocks that we're seeing out there. But yay, though, silver can react just like an investment on the way down too, including in a crash. And what happens in a crash with silver? Well, typically, it means that the price of silver drops precipitously based off of market conditions and economic shock. And usually that happens all together, and silver suffers because of what happens to other investments that are out there, such as in the stock market. You know, when you think about other stocks and other commodities and other entities that are falling dramatically in price, what do people want to do? Well, they immediately do not go to the safe haven silver. No, they do not. This is the safe haven they go to, the dollar. That's right. The dollar, of all things, that which we've been fighting against for a long time, because this is a losing proposition by definition. It's even written right here. This is a debt instrument for all debts, public and private. And you and I suffer as a result because it's a debt instrument. It loses value, and by design, because the Federal Reserve it has a target inflation rate. That's right. There almost always is inflation, and has been since the inception of the Federal Reserve Act of December 23rd, 1913. And so why would you go to the dollar and not silver in the case of a market crash? Well, that's the psychology and the emotions of the market. People run and panic and go to the safest thing they can think of, and a good old dollar is where they go to. We've seen that happen time and time again. Case in point, what happened 2 times in recent history. In 2020, in March of 2020, silver fell dramatically, falling below $12 an ounce. And then more recently, during a tariff panic, well, silver's price fell along with the market pretty dramatically. Not as dramatically as what happened in March of 2020, but no matter how bullish you may be on silver, more than likely there's going to come a day where it's going to crash. And a crash is not necessarily defined just as a 10% drop. It very well could be an 8 or 7 or even 6% drop for successive days in a row. And so that is just something that is a part of the game of how silver is priced. Because when people buy silver in the market, they're buying exposure to the price of silver. You and I, we stack physical silver. And so this message is for you. The 5 things that you need to do in the case that silver does crash. Number 1, do not, I repeat, this is the most important thing, do not panic. In fact, I've seen in some recent videos where the price may have dropped 4 or 5% in 2 days, and people are panicking. I'm out. I'm done. You said silver protects your wealth. Well, what's happening? It's done. Well, that's just one of those things that happens. It can fall. It can rise. It's very volatile, even more volatile than gold. So if we're going to buy silver, we should go with the understanding that we're buying it for the long term, and we buy and hold, especially holding out of the most even-keeled emotional state that you can think of. In other words, you don't want to go crazy with silver. When you hold it for the long term. That's what's called diamond hands. It means you're gripping it so tight, like a lump of coal, and it turns into a diamond in the end. And really, there's a dual message to that. It's about having a firm grip on your silver, like this. You hold on to it. Don't hold on to it loosely. Hold on to it tightly. And that essentially causes that process to harden it into diamonds. And you will see the benefit of holding it for the long term because the price will appreciate, and as to the point where it will protect your wealth. In other words, it will beat inflation, or at least keep up with inflation. And this is one of the reasons why I'm showing this bar right here, because this bar likely I purchased for somewhere in the neighborhood of about $50. And you know, you think about it, that's about $5 per ounce back in the day when I bought this. But in reality, I probably really have only broken even on this for the amount of time that I've held it because of the loss of the value of the dollar because of inflation and other factors since then. So I'm not really coming out ahead on that bar. But nonetheless, when measured against all the other purchases I've made through the course of my time stacking, I've about broken even. And that's the best thing we can hope for with regards to silver. And that's a very good thing for sure. So silver is doing well this year, but nonetheless, do not panic. And so that's, in other words, you take a deep breath, you take a step back, you assess the market conditions and what's going to be happening, and who knows, it could be a killing field for silver for a couple of days, maybe a week, and it may stay down for a length of time. Really making your silver stack pretty much make you lose money if you're going to sell it at a given point in time. But the thing is you have to remember the long-term value, and that is the second thing we have to understand. And it's not an income producer. Silver is not there to make you money in the physical form. It's not. It's a long-term proposition. It is a savings vehicle outside of this system itself. So we remember the long-term value of silver, and value is different than price. And that value proposition is really what that is about. And so when you think about it being a hedge against inflation, but not just that, but again, a hedge against economic instability, the timing of that hedge may take a while. I mean, in March of 2020, when it fell below $12 an ounce, by August of that year, it had more than doubled. So it had recovered all of its losses and come back up. And it always happens. It always recovers. And the way to be able to tell that is to look at the long-term price of silver historically over the last 125 years. And we'll see just by looking at that chart, when adjusted for inflation, that proves silver's worth based off of the price. But there's more to silver than just its price. That's number 2. Number 3, very important, talking about the diamond hands, holding on to it tightly. Do not rush to sell your silver. That's another thing which goes in line with panicking. The instinct when the price of an investment drops is to sell, sell, sell. But with silver, it could be a critical error, especially considering the premiums you've paid on your silver coins. And those premiums, even though right now, they're a little bit less than what they have been in the past, premiums were very high on this coin, on the American Silver Eagle, some time ago. But they have come down greatly. But still, they're high. which means you need to hold it longer in order to break even nominally, much less considering how dollars measured by real dollars with inflation. You have to take that into account too and assess the premiums you paid for them. So that is very important not to sell, rush to sell there. And of course, there are certain circumstances and situations outside of a crash where you may want to sell or need to sell. But I believe in having enough of these on hand. Yes, that's right. These fiat reserve, Federal Reserve notes. It's good to have some of these on hand as a buffer so that you don't have to sell this in the case of a market condition turn there. So that is extremely important to understand and to have to be able to protect your silver stack with these dollars. The other thing to do, the number four thing is to reevaluate your silver stack, your holdings. As with the decline of any of investments, a drop in the value of silver or the drop in the price of silver should be used as an opportunity to reevaluate your portfolio. Consider whether you wish to double down on silver now while other investors sell in a panic. And that leads us into number 5. Before we get there, but you may want to think about in your revaluation to safely and rationally expand your portfolio beyond just silver. In other words, you may want to change your paradigm shift of thinking within the realm of precious metals. Should you consider ETFs and buy some of those as well so that you can liquidate those more quickly and more easily and not worry about some of the market's conditions move? That's only if you have a foundation of a physical silver stack. I normally would not encourage you to get into ETFs, although I can understand why people do it, because that's not really silver stacking. But nonetheless, there may be other areas and other realms in order to invest when the market is down. And it's not just silver. It could be silver mining stocks. Do your own research and due diligence there before investing there, but you might want to check in companies that do produce silver or produce silver as a byproduct, like copper miners or tin or any of the other rare earths or that type of thing. It's more likely they'll be down as well. And there's other areas of silver you may want to consider looking into as well and assessing, and maybe some collectible silver coins, that type of thing. Just reassess, reevaluate your situation. And then number 5, and the final one is, well, common sense, rules of the day, buy on the dip. Consider taking advantage of the market when it falls in price. That's a good time to get in. Now, others may be thinking the same thing, much as was the case in March and early April of 2020, when the market took a big hit and crashed down for silver's price. Premiums skyrocketed. I remember buying a tube of Silver Eagles at the time, and the price I paid was just a little bit, not much less than the price I would have paid before that big dip. So it really just depends on the market conditions and the way that the physical silver market is at the time. So all things to consider there. So those are the 5 things you really need to do next time there's a dip. Now, or next time there's a crash. Now, you'll notice one thing I didn't tell you to do, and that is to give up on silver. Never, ever, ever in a million years should you give up on silver, or at the very least your lifetime, because silver is tested, it is tried and true. And there's more to silver than its price, and there's more to silver than market fluctuations. There's more to silver than a price crash. There's more to silver than an explosion in price. It works in the opposite direction too. I always told my viewers, when the last big run-up and the big rally that we had with silver, I said there's more to silver than just its price. You got to look beyond price. You measure your wealth in ounces, folks, rather than dollars, no matter no matter how it's priced. I don't care if it goes up to $100 an ounce. We have to think outside of the dollar when we're stacking silver, because it's wealth outside of the system. To me, that's one of the biggest selling points of silver. That is undeniable and an amazing thing. So I hope you found this video informative, insightful, and educational. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch, and encourage you to please rate. That means press that thumbs up button down below, share, comment, and subscribe.